Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, stakeholders, and most importantly, our farmers that are joining us from different provinces. Welcome to today's webinar on biosecurity, the first line of defense. My name, as I've mentioned, it's Franz Dolamo, and I'm the livestock technical advisor here at RMIS, as you can see on the screen. And I will be facilitating today's session where we will be talking about practical and simple biosecurity measures that farmers can apply on their farms immediately. Biosecurity, the first line of defense. Why did I choose this topic? Through this topic, just messages that keeps on popping up. Okay, why did I choose this biosecurity, the first line of defense? If you can remember those ones that joined the session, the webinar that we held last month, one of my colleagues, Ernest, had a very informative webinar on FMD. So it is very important that we align ourselves with the current situation that's happening in our country. Hence, we saw it very important that we choose this line as early as possible. So our goal for today is very simple, dear farmers. So we want to protect our animals from diseases and protect our income and protect the future of our farms. Because we know, farmers, that good biosecurity is not complicated, and it is about doing the right things every day to keep the diseases out. So we're going to start with the first slide. Let's say why biosecurity matters, what biosecurity really means. So farmers, I want us to begin by asking ourselves, why does biosecurity really matter so much on the farm, and what it really means? So I request, because I'm hearing a little bit of sounds, if we can unmute or mute ourselves. And then once we are done with the session, that's when you can unmute and ask questions, or if you've got any recommendations, you can always do that. My request, okay, let's continue. So what I was saying, farmers, is that why biosecurity matters. So farmers, I mentioned that biosecurity, farmers, what I mentioned is that farmers, I want us to begin by asking ourselves why biosecurity really matters so much on our farms and what it really means. So in simple terms, biosecurity simply means protecting your farm from diseases that can enter and spread among your animals. I'll repeat that. Biosecurity simply means protecting your farm from diseases that can enter and spread among your animals. So this biosecurity, what does it have on the cost of diseases outbreak? So on the cost of disease outbreak, farmers, we know that disease outbreaks are very expensive and can affect the whole farm very quickly. We know that when animals get sick, we spend more money on treatment, medications, and veterinary services. If we don't, farmers, you know that we can lose animals, and this means that that's a direct financial loss. In some cases, farmers, we may not be allowed to sell or move animals, which affects the income. I'll repeat that. If we don't, we can lose animals, and this means that a direct financial loss on our farm. And in some cases, farmers, we may not be allowed to sell or move animals, which affects income. So one outbreak can undo the years of hard work that we have put in on biosecurity. So one outbreak can undo the years of hard work. So in recent, and then we're going to focus on the subtopic where it says recent disease risk affecting the red meat sector. So farmers, we have seen diseases or current diseases such as the foot and mouth disease, the brucellosis, and the lumpy skin disease affecting farms and limiting trade. So these diseases spread quickly and can affect many farmers at the same time. This is why farmers' biosecurity is essential. The question is not if biosecurity is important. The question is, what are we doing on our farms daily to reduce that risk? We're going to move to our next slide. So in this slide, farmers, where it says key disease risk in the red meat value chain. So farmers, most diseases don't arrive by accident. That's one thing that we should know, that farmers, most diseases, they don't arrive by accident. Before we can talk about all these things, we must first understand how diseases get into the farms. Once we know that, then we can put measures in place to stop them. So animal movements and the buying of stock from either neighbors and also the auctions. So farmers, one thing you should always know is that every time you bring a new animal onto your farm, whether you bought it from an auction or neighbor, you are also bringing its health history, whether you know it or not. That's very important that I repeat that. Every time you bring in new stock into your farm, whether you bought it from an auction or from your neighbor, you just have to know that you are also bringing its health history, whether you know it or not. So farmers, let's remember that healthy looking animals can still bring disease to our farms. I'll repeat that healthy looking animals can still bring diseases to our farms. So I'll move to the next subtopics where it says shared grazing and communal areas. How does that pose a challenge to our farms? So farmers, there is one thing we should understand. When animals mix, diseases don't ask which farm they belong to. That's very important, and I repeat that. When animals mix, diseases, they don't ask which farms they belong to. We know that there's a term that says one bad apple spoils the bunch. So through these communal grazing camps, our water points shared by multiple farmers and also fence line contact with neighbors are setups that bring diseases to our farms or kraals. Hence, biosecurity farmers in a communal setup requires team sports. I know it's very tricky and it's a very difficult aspect, especially if you are in a communal land. Hence, I emphasize that if it's a communal setup requires a team sports and the mentality rather than everyone for himself approach, it won't work, especially on a communal setup. We need to know that all the farmers in the communal lands needs to work together. If it's disease prevention, we know we have to come together. We have to make sure that we control all those internal and external parasites at the same time, rather than one saying that, no, I will do mine at my own time. Because diseases, they don't ask which farm they belong to. Vehicles, people, and equipment. So the vehicles that drive into our farms, including the people and equipment, how do those pose a risk in disease spread to our farms? So farmers, we know that diseases can be carried onto the farm through vehicles, visitors, and shared equipment. Livestock trucks, services providers, we know very well that we do have local co-ops that offer a delivery on maybe feeds on multiple farms. So we don't know what my neighbor outbreak or diseases they are having at that point. So they would move from one farm to another. Those are some of the risks they poses. Livestock trucks, services providers, and tools moving between farms may bring in infections. Just like your normal platform skills. If maybe you want to go to sell your winners to an auction, you would ask your neighbor if you don't have a weighing scale, and then you don't know whether they have disinfected that weighing scale. Those are some of the things that pose a risk to our farms if we don't take drastic measures to avoid in sharing those tools or to make sure that they do follow the right biosecurity measures. Even mud on tires or boots can carry disease from one farm to another. So that's another point that we should take into consideration. When we allow those trucks and different vehicles to enter the farms, and ourselves, we just have to make sure that the PPE that we use, the different clothes that we wear on every day, we just have to make sure that we change regularly if we're gonna handle our animals, and we know that we've got enough boots, or we make sure that we follow biosecurity measures where we change our boots once we are done working on the animals, and we disinfect and make sure that we wear different clothes. Slides. High risk practices on farms. These are some of the, when we allow new animals to mix immediately, the herd increase disease risk. Allowing new animals, I've emphasized that when we buy in, maybe let's say production auctions or your normal auctions, and then we don't do any quarantines, it poses a risk on increasing the disease risk to our herd. The lack of quarantine or proper hygiene can also, those are practices that create easy entry for infections. So lack of quarantine, as I've mentioned, that each and every animals that you bring in, you just have to make sure that there is a certain number of days that you quarantine them before we mix them with the entire herd. Uncontrolled movements, we know that we do have visitors, and our workers also have visitors. So we just have to make sure those people and equipment spreads disease faster. So we just have to make sure that we limit all those movement. And small daily habits can either protect or expose your farm. So what I'm saying is that if you don't adhere to your biosecurity rules on those people that visit, including those vehicles that we normally comes, maybe if it's family members, because we don't know how many farms are they visiting on a daily basis. So we just have to avoid that. So why prevention is cheaper than treatment? The reason we keep emphasizing that, farmers, is that it costs far less to prevent disease than to deal with an outbreak. Because we know that one sick animal can cost you more than a year of good biosecurity. Hence, we keep on saying that why prevention is cheaper than treatment. You know that if now we have to, let's say maybe we have to vaccinate against lumpy skin, and then we know that 100 doses of lumpy skin cost maybe let's say around 1.7. If maybe we don't do that and we lose, maybe let's say we do get an outbreak of lumpy skin because we didn't vaccinate against that, and we lose maybe two winners or two cows that cost more than 10,000. You see that we compromise something that cost maybe a less than 2K on animals that cost way too much. So those are one of the things that we mean when we say it costs far less to prevent disease than to deal with an outbreak. Because an outbreak, you need to call in some vet, you need to make sure that there's boost, so it's a lot of money. Unlike you should have just bought that vaccine and make sure that we prevent the disease before it creates any outbreak. So on farm biosecurity measures. So up to now, farmers, we have focused on understanding how diseases enter our farms. So through animals, through people, through vehicles, and daily activities, we have touched on that. Those are some of the things that poses a risk to our farm. So now we move to the most important part. What is it that we can do on the farms to prevent this from happening? So in this section, farmers, we will look at practical on-farm biosecurity measures that can apply immediately to protect your animals and your business. So these are the things that we're gonna put into place to make sure that all those vehicles, all those allowance of vehicles, all those peoples, all those animals that we have been giving access or that possess a risk to our farms or to our animals, how do we control that? So the first subtopic where it says controlled access to farms. These are the things you can start doing today to prevent your farm. First, we must have a visitor's logbook. So what do I mean by this? So you have to have a register where each and every person who comes onto your farm should write down their name, where they are coming from, and the date of the visit. One can ask, why should we do this? These farmers help us to track who has been on your farm in case there is a disease problem. Second, farmers, is to restrict unnecessary access. It's either of people or of vehicles. If you know that maybe your neighbor or someone from, let's say, Polokwane wants to visit you, one of the farmers that you know each other, and it's not any of, it's just visiting just to come and check up on you through this mist of FMD and all these outbreaks. That's you restrict such visit, because it's just someone that's coming just to check up on you. We can always do that electronically. So not everyone needs to enter your farm or your livestock areas. So the fewer people that enter, the lower your risk of bringing in disease. So the third one, farmers have one main entrance. We have to have one main entrance to your farm. This makes it easier to see who is coming in and what they are bringing. It also helps you farmers to clean and controls everything in one place. So we go to quarantine and isolation. So farmers, they say that we are involved in different trade or we do a business with our animals. We need to quarantine all new animals for 28 days to give time for any hidden illness to show. It's very important. I'll repeat that if you have missed it. We need to quarantine all new animals for 28 days to give time for any hidden illness to show. So what do we mean by quarantine? Quarantine means that we separate each and every new animals that come in. We need to separate them from the head that we had in the farm. So we need to, if it's possible, maybe have a separate kraal and maybe at the gate, the main entrance, where we know that we're going to put in animals that come from, maybe let's say we are farming in Limpopo and then they are coming from the northwest. We just put them there so that for probably 28 days, so that if maybe there is any incubation or there's any disease that we cannot see and it's still in incubation period, we've got enough time so that those animals can be able to show those signs, and then we can react without posing any challenges to our main health. So second, farmers, is to restrict unnecessarily access. Not everyone needs, okay, we are this or we are on this quarantine and isolation. So we need to make sure that we keep quarantine camps fully fenced. They must be at least 20 meters away from the main head or any areas where other animals are grazing. That's very important. So we need to check quarantined animals every day for signs of illness and record what you see. So that's very important that the animals that we have quarantined, it's either through, or the animals that we have isolated, it's either if maybe they are sick, we need to make sure that on a daily basis, we go there and see the condition of those animals. And very important, no animals should leave the farm during the 28-day quarantine period. Animals that you say that you have isolated or quarantined for that 28 days shouldn't be sold, because we don't know whether they are still in incubation period of different diseases. So we should make sure that they have passed the 28 days, and then we can either sell them or we can either introduce them to our main head. Record keeping. Farmers, we know when coming to record keeping that if you don't write it down, you can't trace it when something goes wrong. Record keeping works everywhere, farmers. And it's very sad that we do visit farmers where they are unable to tell us the head count of their farmers. And once you say, or once you ask Mr. Dolamo, how many animals or how many goats do you have? And then the response will be, I know all of them, or I'm able to identify them based on color. So that's very risky. That's very risky. You can always have that cheapest book and just write the total numbers, or just write a simple ear tag, and then you know that if you can't recall, because we are improving each and every day. That 50 animals that we have now, once they calve or once we've got kids, they multiply, and then we lost count. So once you have recorded them, you can always say that, let me just bring my book to confirm whatever I'm saying. So farmers, first we need to record all animals' movement in and out of your farm. We write down when animals are bought. We write down when animals are sold, or we have moved between camps. So we need to know if maybe the camps that we have, we've got names, Camp A, Camp B, Camp 3. We You need to know, okay, which animals do we have in camp A, which animals do we have in camp B. We should also include where the animals come from or where they are going. Very important. Why are we recording these, farmers? This is a very important question to ask, so that it helps you to trace back quickly if a disease problem occurs. If maybe, let's say, we have bought an animal from a certain auction and we have recorded that, okay, we have bought so much animals and then we have quarantined them for 28 days. Within the quarantine, they show signs of symptoms of a certain disease. We can always track back to say that, okay, we've got this disease from so and so and so, and then we can always alert those in those areas that animals that we have bought here are showing signs of, let's say, for instance, FMD or signs of lumpy skin. And then we might be assisting them in terms of if maybe there are more farmers that have bought from the same auction to check if if the animals that they have bought from the same auction are also showing those signs. So, and then we are saving or we are protecting the main herd. So the same applies for treatments and vaccination, farmers. We write down the dates, the type of treatment, and for which animals we have treated. The treatments, we also do the same thing. For if an animal has showing symptoms, inject maybe an Oxytet or maybe a certain vaccination that we have used to prevent for a certain disease. We note that down, that okay, we have done a lumpyvax, we have done brucellosis or something like that, so that if push come, we need to invite a vet to come and do some diagnosis. We've got all those records to share with them. Hygiene practices of equipment, food buffs, and handling facilities. Farmers, I want to start off by making it clear that, and I know there's a lot of us that don't take this into consideration, or we are trying to do some shortcuts. I wanted to make it clear that cleaning and disinfecting are two different steps. You must clean first before a disinfectant can work properly. So you don't disinfect and pour water as you don't disinfect and then pour water and then clean. So you do the opposite. You clean first and then you put a disinfectant. And then when coming to equipments, farmers, we must disinfect shed tools and also avoid borrowing equipments where possible. Push come, you borrow a certain equipment from your neighbor. Just make sure that you follow the bio security protocol. You make sure that the platform scale is cleaned and is disinfected. And if it happens that maybe there is circulating outbreaks of, let's say, maybe FMD, just make sure that the quarantine period also takes place. Make sure that let's give it a few days that it rests before it can enter my farm. So food buffs, we should ensure, farmers, that food buffs are placed at farms entrances or kraals. You can see in the pictures as an example that maybe they are entering if it's a pig or maybe a poultry, there is a food bath, and probably they are having their boots on. So when you go out with the same boots, you make sure that after disinfecting yourself, you make sure that you put those shoes inside a plastic and you don't repeat them. If maybe you are going to maybe the next house, or maybe if you are going home and then you are returning, or maybe if you are going to another farm, make sure that you change all those clothes. So for each and every place at the farm should have a food bath at the entrance. So we should use a disinfectant solution, which you can get from your nearest co-op or branch. They've got a variety F10. Then I've seen there is one, can't remember the name, but then it's the one that they use normally for a disinfectant for towards foot and mouth. So, and lastly, you should ensure that people or visitors use them. So you can't place a food bath there and then your visitors they jump over or they try all those tricks. So you should have maybe someone that monitors that everyone make sure that they do disinfect, and it's guaranteed because we know that those boots can carry more diseases than your animals. Go to our next slide. So in this slide, farmers, we will be, just want to keep track of time. In this slide, farmers, we will be focusing on the role of workers, the importance of training, because we know that no matter how good your systems are, biosecurity will only work if the people on the farm understand it and follow it every day. Just to repeat that, farmers, that we know that our farmers are the first line of defense. Why we are saying that is because they are the people that probably feed our animals. You can see in that pictures, it's not sure whether they are doing any inoculations or so. They are the ones that feed our animals, that move our animals and handle our animals daily. So our workers are the people that are the first people to notice if there is any changes in our herd. So their actions can either prevent or spread diseases. So training staff and early detection. So farmers, I want to start, especially when I am on the training staff, to say that your workers are your eyes and ears on the farm. If they don't notice a problem early, you will only see it when it's already too late. So once the workers that you have employed in your farms, they don't see or they don't know how to detect a certain symptom, or you didn't train them towards to let's say maybe to point out signs. If an animal is sick, you will have a problem because you will always respond late. And one thing we should know, farmers, is that diseases that doesn't start big, it starts small. Animal, unless there's certain diseases that are sudden death, but then most of the diseases, there's a symptom where they start showing fever and then they build up. So if they don't notice a problem early, you will only see it when it's already too late. So the earlier you see it, the easier it is to control. So the earlier your workers are able to point out a certain animal that's sick, the easier it is to control. So we should teach our workers, farmers, to be able to point out animals that are weak and also animals that are isolated from the entire herd, animals that are limping or unusual movement, animals also that are showing any discharged nose or mouth as the symptoms of a certain disease. They must be able to report on that. The reporting procedure, this is the most important part. Because farmers, we know that sometimes when our workers report on certain diseases, the first thing that we say is that, what did you do? Rather than giving rather than being thankful to the worker that he have reported the whatever the problem is. So we must build a relationship with our workers where they feel safe to report issues. We don't punish them for reporting, we thank them. So that's one thing. So the reporting is very simple. It's either if you've got a farm manager or as an owner, you just teach them that at the moment we report on issues very quickly, the better it is to respond. If maybe there's a veterinary that's needed or vet expert, we will do that. The earlier, the better. Creating a biosecurity mindset. So farmers, we should create a habit where our workers follow biosecurity without being told. Just like locking your own house at night, you don't even think twice about it. You know, if it's bedtime, when we lock the rooms, we don't even ask a second party if we should do that. So it should be the habit that we have created with our workers, where our workers, they follow biosecurity protocols without being told. As it shows there, in the picture where there's a biosecurity football and the worker, you can see maybe it's pointing animals that are probably seeing any symptoms of not being good. So that's the habit that we should build in our farming enterprise. So farmers, this is probably our last slide. So in this slide, we'll be focusing on simple biosecurity plans and take-home tools before we can open the lines for questions. So the question is, what is a basic farm biosecurity plan should include? A plan shouldn't be something that is complicated farmers for our own workers to follow. A plan should include access control, where we know that we've got register for who enters the farm, who do we allow, and also isolated point or quarantine point where we know that, okay, once we have brought in animals, they will be situated here, isolated here or quarantined here for those amount of days. Animal movements, we know that we buy animals from our neighbors, from auctions. So we should make sure that those quarantined protocols are adhered to. We do follow them, including hygiene. Remember we were talking about food baths. So a biosecurity plan should include that as well, where we make sure that each and every kraal have a food bath, or the entrance of our do have those food baths. And then we keep records. Records are patient, so we should write on those record keeping books. We must make sure that we record each and every thing that happens. If we have bought the medications, for example, if we have bought those disinfectant, we must record on the budget side, because those are those are expenses that occur from the business. And emergency response steps if disaster is suspected. Disease suspected, emergency response steps, we must isolate. So if maybe there's maybe a symptoms of, let's say for now, for FMD or lumpy skin, we must isolate those animals. We must isolate from the entire herd, and we stop movement. Stop movement meaning that we don't sell if there is. It might be that other animals might be on incubation, so we don't want to spread diseases from one point to another. So we must stop movement and report. You must report if maybe you see if maybe it's a state-controlled disease like FMD, you must report that. Either if maybe, let's say it's lumpyvax, you must report to your owner, and then your owner will take things new workers, you must report to the relevant people. And the fourth one, you must follow advice. There is a number of consulting companies, or your MSD, your VEBEC, where you can get advice, and also your veterinary officers and your technical advisors from RMS. You can also ask them, where you can get assistance on certain aspects of your farming enterprise. Where to get support? Remember, we are not alone in this farming enterprise. There is industry support. There is also private vets, state vets, and extension officers, where they can give you the support that you need. So it is very important that if there is something, or we suspect certain outbreaks of certain diseases, we either, if you've got a private vet, you call them to come and diagnose, or if there is any treatment plans, they come and advise on that. If is, for instance, now if it's maybe you suspect that there might be FMD symptoms, you report to your nearest state vets. We do have people indoors here at RMS where you can also also report if maybe you suspect certain diseases that are state controlled, and they will be able to give you the relevant support and also the relevant advice on what to do, and also your extension officers and your industry support updates, and then also give you best practices on how to go about whatever outbreak you might be experiencing. So we are definitely on I think on time in terms of finishing my presentation. So I'll conclude by saying that start small, stay consistent, and involve everyone on the farm. That's how biosecurity works. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my slides, but then one thing that I can assure you is that we will, within the upcoming, probably next week, there will be a recording saved on our website for each and every training that we have done before, or the ones, because we are planning to have each and every month these types of free webinar sessions where we can share information, and also farmers also have the chance to also share their exposure on how do they run their daily farming operations. So I'm going to open the lines if maybe there is any clarity, or maybe there's someone that also wants to share his own, but then we're going to keep it a bit short. We're going to keep it a bit short so that you can also give other people some chance. So I'm just going to stop the sharing part and start with the questions. I've got, is it Marvin? Marvin, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dalamo. And I'm not sure whether I'm audible or not.
100% I can hear you.
All right. Good evening, listeners. My question of the day is that if I buy cattle from an auction, and I'm on the issue of self quarantine. If I buy cattle, maybe 4 cows from an auction, and then will it be advisable to,
if first of all, I would advise that you ask you ask the records. Where are you buying the animals from, or where were the animal? Okay, obviously there will be an owner of the animals, so you would ask where are these animals coming from? Is it if maybe you are in a hard water area, and the other, you will ask those questions. But it's always advisable that you can always inject, so that if there is any disease in your own surrounding or in your own farm that the other farmer doesn't have, it doesn't become very, what can I say? It doesn't become, what words do I use? It doesn't become very strong towards you. You already have immune boost on your animal. So it is advisable to inject an Oxytet. There's a variety of them, but it is advisable, yes. But then one thing that you shouldn't forget, quarantine. Yes, inject and quarantine for 28 days so that we can see if they are adapting well. Yeah, it is advisable. It's not wrong to do that. Thank you very much, Marvin. Okay, let me just go down and see if we do have any questions as well. Okay. Is there anyone with clarity seeking, or one that wants to also share their own experience at their farms? What are they using currently? Oh, okay. Ismail Mahati. Okay, I can see in the chat box. In the chat box, there is also some questions. Yes, Ismail Mahati.
Thank you and good evening, colleagues. Let me just ask Ntatutula Amore if since I'm using the F10 solution mixed today, then some remain. Can I reuse, or I must add the F10 on that solution, or I must destroy the following day? What must I do? Thank you.
A very important question is Mr. Mahati, and so I don't have an accurate answer towards your questions. But then what we are doing from our side, once we have left one farm, so we make sure that, let's say maybe the solution that we have mixed, we finish it and then we mix another one. So I don't know whether there is maybe the dilution or maybe the weakness if maybe you leave it overnight or so. But then if there is anyone on the platform that can give us guidance on that, if maybe you have left a mixed solution for today overnight, the following day, are you able to use it, or do you need to mix another one? Does it have any effect if it has slept overnight? Anyone that can give us guidance? tonight. But then if we don't, Mr. Makati, I'll make sure that I give you a response. I do have your contacts. I'll give you a response regarding that after probably tomorrow on if it is advisable. I think we do have some reps from those companies that can always assist if it is advisable to reuse the same mix that we have mixed. Is there anyone that, okay, on the group chats? Okay, let's see. Okay, okay, there is a question that says, what if after 21 days I notice sickness from the animals I bought from the auction? That's one of the things that we are looking for. Once you are able to notice, if it's a production auction, I think there is a grace period where they say if the animals show some signs of sickness, you are able to return them back. But then I think they are mostly on those production auctions. In your normal week-to-week auctions, you are able, now you know that you are able to it's either you call in a vet to come or to do a diagnosis on those animals so that we can see what's the problem. Unlike exposing them to your own entire herd without knowing. So at least now after quarantine, you are able to see okay, this is the problem that I have on these animals, and then you can take on how do we deal with that. Farmers can also get support from animal health technician. 100% correct. Bokang, that's very correct. Also advise if the incubation period is 14 or 28 days. Lastly, what critical information one would need to include in the register in an event of an outbreak. So remember, an outbreak, you will have to use a Sandile. So remember, you will have to identify first or what outbreak do you have. We do have state controlled diseases. If maybe in a case of you suspect FMD, you have to follow the protocols of calling maybe your nearest animal health technician, report the incident. They will call out vets and they will come through to do some tests, and you will that's how you make sure that you report on those outbreaks. And then let me just check. Thanks for the insightful information. Please recommend a disinfectant that we can explore. There is one that we are using in the office. I think it's, I just forgot the name of that, but then I've got my colleague online. If maybe you can just write it on the chat box. I just forgot the name of that, but it's recommended for during this time of the FMD. And then there is one for F10. I think there is a variety, but then Sandile, I'll just check your email, and when we share the video, I'll just recommend a few products that you can always check on your nearest branches. And then if you happen to have a new animals in your farm during this period due to circumstances beyond your control, can you at least block such animals with tetracycline containing injections? It is always advisable to call your animal health technician if there is from the department, or if you've got a vet, a private vet, to come and do diagnosis, and then they will be able to give you proper prescriptions on what medication to use. So yes, the first thing is to report.
Good evening, France.
Good evening.
And good evening, farmers. I think I heard you when you were mentioning disease point of entry to the farm, and you mentioned 3, being people, animal, and vehicles. And I was just wondering if I might be thinking wide, but you'll direct me. I was thinking maybe there might be more, and what are the biosecurities for those, like other animals, bird, rain, and whatever type of carriers that might be coming to your farm. And those that I have just mentioned, what would be the biosecurity to them? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. That's very it's an important question. Yes, it's not only the ones that the 3 that I've mentioned. You do get mosquitoes that are carriers and all those things. But I think the type of diseases that they spread are ones that are controllable in a way that we can always buy. If maybe there's a animal health plan that we have in place at our farms, maybe we inject in time. And we know that for whatever disease, whatever disease risk they possess, it's controlled. I think we will be in a safe place to say that, okay, even though they are there, we know that we have injected just for, like, for example, your lumpy skins. Your lumpy skin, it's transferred by flies. So we know that if you have injected with LumpyVax, you are safe for that. So I don't know if maybe I've answered your questions. So other measures, because you can't put you can't put, let's say, food buffs for fly. It's impossible. So those ones, it's just you just have to make sure that you control the types of diseases they possess on or the risk or the danger towards your animals. So you just have to make sure that you inject in time, you follow your animal health program, and if you don't have a proper one, or if maybe you might have questions on the one that you can always send an email, and then we will also share the ones that we have here at the Red Meat.
Okay, not really making it a dialogue, but
correct.
With the current disease, if my neighbor has a positive case of FND, the flow of water from his side comes to my farm to infect my animal. Just asking. Maybe it's a hypothetical question, but I'm curious to understand.
It is possible, because it is possible to get FMD through if maybe they are drinking from the same water streams. Sure. If it's quite a
you can pause and just go pause and go and maybe find out, and we'll get it from your.
One thing I know, if they are drinking from the same water point, it is they possess that risk of transferring that disease to one another. But then we will come to it. We'll come to it, Ezekiel.
Yeah. Hello, farmers.
Yes, Mister. Yes.
Yeah. In case of FMD,
correct.
Because it's a state-controlled disease.
Yep.
If your neighbor has a positive case, what the state normally do is they quarantine the area, not that farm.
Mm-hmm.
They quarantine the area around that farm, and then they do tests to check if there is any further infections and stuff. So if you are worried about the stream, if the animals are drinking from the same stream, the chances are very high that your farm can get infected. Then currently the state is fixing the thing of vaccination. So if your neighbor is infected, you are more likely to get vaccination from that. The state is more likely to come and vaccinate your head because your neighbor is infected. So it's a work in progress, but you don't have to worry a lot about that. But you must know that if your neighbor is infected, has an infected head, so your head will also be placed under a quarantine as well.
Correct, Bokang. Thanks for the addition. Do we have any further questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, farmers. We don't take it for granted for your availability in our sessions, and we encourage you to always check our website. There is webinars that we have done before. If maybe you have missed something, maybe on nutrition, you need something on calving season, you want something on FMD. We did, as I've highlighted when we started the session, that we did a webinar last month on when we were focusing more on FMD. So go and check that. It's a learning curve. So thank you very much, and let's call it a night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.